Hello and welcome to episode number 12 of Gardening with Ben here on the podcast stream. I hope you're enjoying the episodes. If you're new to the series, feel free to listen back to the other episodes which are on the podcasts, and you can also find out all about Gardening with Ben, how I got into gardening, and also many other topics regarding allotments and gardening. So today's episode is going to be about planting onions, as now is a great time to be planting your autumn onions. So we're going to go through that step by step and talk about the best ways to planting those autumn onions. So grab a drink, grab a tea, a coffee, sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. Here's Gardening with Ben. So the other day we talked a lot about how to grow garlic, how to plant garlic, and how best to look after garlic. So as that was quite a popular episode, we're going to keep bringing you these little episodes on how to plant certain items and how to look after them. So today's topic is going to be about how to plant autumn onions, as now is the perfect time to be planting your autumn onions, which will be ready for June, July time, ready for harvesting. So let's tell you how to plant autumn onions. So when you're looking for your onions to plant at this time of year, whether it be onions or shallots, you need to be looking for the ones that are specific for the autumn, as obviously they need to be ones that can cope with the cold weather here in the UK or wherever you are growing them. And usually you can purchase these from garden centres or online, as shops online, and make sure that they are autumn sets. And what a set is, it's where it's not quite a seed, but it is actually a little bulb, like a small little onion. So it's part like on its way there to growing into that onion. So yeah, if you're looking for the onion sets, have a look in a garden centre, or if not, search online and you should be able to find some to grow. Now when you're planting onion sets, you can either start the onion sets off in seed trays, which I've done before, or you can plant them straight into the ground. The thing is, we're starting them off in seed trays. It will give them that extra bit of warmth inside to get them going and to get the shoots growing on the onions, which gives them it speeds them up a bit to start them off with. And once you get the shoots on them, then you can transplant them outside to where you want them to grow. But with onions, they do send out large roots from them. Quite a few people say that they're very shallow rooting, but they're not. They can send out long roots, onions. So sometimes it's best off to plant them straight outside in the rows that you're going to be planting them. So if you're going to be planting them outdoors, the best thing to do first is maybe possibly a month before, prepare the soil, dig it all over, weed it, add some organic matter to the ground, and make sure, like I said, that it's weed free before you plant them, as you don't want your onions competing against the weeds, as if the weeds are growing around the onions, they'll take all the water, all the nutrition in the soil, and you won't get as big a crops as you're wanting. So once you've prepared the ground, you can set out your markers so that you've got your straight lines on where you're going to plant your onions. So when you're marking out your rows, you need to leave quite a bit of space in between your rows. The reason for this is that they don't want to be too crowded and fighting between one another for the water what's around. Or also you need to make sure that there's plenty spaced apart so that you can weed them easily. Like I said, they don't like to compete against the weeds, so you need to make sure that it's enough space in between to either get your hoe in or to get your hand fork in to keep them weed free as much as possible. Even if it's just hoeing them every 3 days or once a week. If you do it regularly, you'll keep on top of it, and the onions will have a good chance of swelling and get to that great size what you can grow an onion to. So the ideal spacing between the rows should be around 30 centimeters, which is a rule of length. And the space in between an onion when you're planting them should be around 10 centimeters at least. Probably more than 10, to be honest. I'd go for possibly around 20. It just gives you that extra space in between each onion to get them weeded nice and easy. And if you're marking them out where you're going to be planting them, if you stick to the same dimensions for each bulb, then you'll easily be able to get that hoe in between, and they will look symmetrical, which is also better as well. It makes it look a bit more posher if they're all in the same places and all equal. If you haven't heard already, the place where I'm recording these podcasts is an app called Anchor, and it's totally free. They also put your podcasts on multiple platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Straight away, you can also schedule the time that you want it to go on, which is fantastic. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer, so you can record your podcast literally anywhere you want. You can also make money from your podcasts as well, with no minimum listenership whatsoever. So the more times it gets played, the more times you can earn money from it. And there's everything you need to make your podcast all in one place. So if you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, you can get started with your free podcasts. So now you've marked out where you're going to be planting your onions, you can actually start to plant them now. This is the best bit. If you've got children, get them involved, as they will absolutely love planting produce, as it helps them to nurture and look after the plants, and then they get to see the rewards afterwards as well. So it's always good to get children and grandchildren involved in the process. So to plant your onion set bulbs, you need to push the bulb in just so that the tip is just showing at the top of the soil. Make sure it's pushed down nicely. Don't push too hard that you damage the bulb. Make sure that the bulb is hard and not too squishy, because if it's too squishy, that means it's rotted. So you're needing a nice hard bulb. Push it down into the soil to make sure that the tip is just showing out of the soil. So you can get all them planted now and sit back and relax. That's what you think. So once you've planted your bulbs, you can obviously sit back and look at them and keep your eye on them. And what then starts to happen is that the green shoots start to form out of the top of the onions, and that means that they're starting to grow. But the only thing is, with the green shoots popping out of the onions, is at around this time there's not much growing in the gardens. And if you have trouble with pigeons down on your allotments or in the garden, like I do, you will have to get them netted over, because if you don't net them over, the pigeons will come down and they'll pull out the onion bulbs. They'll eat the tops off the bulbs, eat the green shoots off the top of the bulbs, and then obviously damaging your onion, and you might not get a nice sized onion. So you need to protect them from the pigeons, and also possibly squirrels. If you've got squirrels, they like to pull them out and mess around with them. So make sure they're netted over to give that extra protection. Once you've got some netting on your allotment, I'm sure it'll last you for years to come. You can just keep taking it on and off as and when. And when they get to a decent size, the onions, you can take the netting off and use it somewhere else, because the pigeons shouldn't mess with them once they get to a decent size. So to look after your onions once you've got them growing is that, like I say, you need to keep them as much weed free as possible. Now, you're best off doing it by hand, to be honest. round onions, as like I say, the roots are generally near the soil on the plant, so you don't want to risk slicing through it with a hoe and damaging the roots on the onions, as without the roots growing well on the onions, they won't grow to that size that you want them to. So make sure you do keep them weed free, and obviously keep them watered. They tend to grow more in the winter time, the onions, and then in the spring and the summer, that's when they start to swell more and get that size, and they push out the skins and get that swelling going in the spring time, ready for the summer, ready for the harvest. So now it's the beginning of summer, end of summer, and now you're thinking about, when will my onions be ready to harvest? That's the best bit. You've spent probably 6 months or so growing these onions and seeing how big you can get them to grow, but now you want to know when is the best time to harvest them. So the best time to harvest your onions, what you've planted and grown, is you'll get a telltale sign on the onion plants. What will happen is that the leaves will start to turn yellow on the onions and they'll start to bend over. That means that the onions are now getting ready to be picked. So the best way to pick the onions is to get a mini fork and gently ease the onion out of the soil. Gently, being careful not to pierce the onion with the fork. I've done that many times, and then you end up wasting an onion. So gently lift them up out of the soil, shake off as much soil as possible, but then what you can do is you can put them on some wire racking so that the leaves are going down through the racking and the onion is on top, and this will put them in the sunshine and leave them to dry, and hopefully all the soil will dry off and then it'll just shake off. Once you've done that for a day or so, then you can hang them up in a garage or a shed, somewhere that's cool and dry, and you can use them as and when you want them, and they'll last at least 6 to 7 months if you have them in the right conditions. So obviously a lot of people grow a lot of onions, so then you'll just be able to use 1 or 2 every few days, and they should last you possibly all year. Fingers crossed if you grow enough. So that is basically how you grow onions. So I hope you found this daily episode useful. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast, what channel that you're listening to it on, whether it be Spotify, podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Click that subscribe button and then you'll be able to come back every day and listen to my daily podcasts. And feel free to check out my social media channels as well. Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, all Gardening with Ben. Give me a follow. I'm quite active on my Facebook profile, sharing tips and advice on a daily basis. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Come back tomorrow for tomorrow's podcast, or feel free to check out all my other podcasts which are on my channel at the moment. Thanks for listening, and remember, keep gardening.